The video you're looking at may appear normal at first, but shortly after this moment, one of the players was going to experience something so unfathomably rare, it'll make you question whether or not the footage is even real in the first place. But I can assure you this is 100% real, and there's even aftermath photos to prove it. I'll tell you everything, but as usual, let's get into the backstory first. Happy Halloween, guys. On the 10th of February in 2024, a 34-year-old Indonesian man who I'm going to refer to as SR out of respect would lace up his footwear and get ready to enjoy one of his favorite things in the world, the game of football, or soccer depending on where you live. SR played for a team in a pretty large Indonesian league, and although he'd played for so long, he would never get tired of it. There was nothing he looked forward to more than Saturday afternoon matches, and everyone in his circle knew it. And on this Saturday, things were no different. They joke around in the dressing room and go over strategy a bit more before eventually meeting their rival team on the field and kicking off. The weather was hot but not too hot, and the energy was super high amidst the players. And that's how it stayed for the first 15 minutes, but little did they know, things were going to take a completely unexpected and disturbing turn. See, I mentioned the weather was hot, but although it may have been nice and sunny at the arena, the teams were actually notified that there were thunderstorms developing both south and east of them. But since things were looking good where they were, they decided to kick off anyways, as even though there was a good possibility they'd be rained out later, it was still totally worth the risk. Sadly though, getting rained out would become the absolute least of their concerns. About 16 minutes into the game, a play would begin and one of SR's teammates would start running down the field, getting ready to set up some sort of pass to him, when completely unexpectedly, SR was struck directly by a bolt of lightning, throwing him immediately onto the ground and sending all the players into a frenzy. Both his teammates and rivals rushed over to help, and although he was still breathing slightly, they knew his situation was extremely dire. Not only is there footage of this entire event, but there's also close-up pictures of him laying there right after, which I'm obviously not going to show you on here for many reasons. But there's clearly spotting on him from the bolt, and the players in the photo look very distressed. Emergency personnel were called immediately and would soon arrive on the scene, but he would later succumb to his situation in the hospital. Everyone was understandably devastated. SR experienced one of the most unexpected, horrific ways to go, all while playing his favorite sport. Although it seems quick, every situation differs and there are many people who have survived these events. In fact, in recent years, there have actually been a few others to be struck by lightning strikes on soccer fields as well. They just weren't documented like this one. In the aftermath, all other teams would take a moment of silence for him, his club would make posts honoring him, and his teammates would do their best to move forward and improve in his honor. Other than that, the information of what happened afterwards is pretty scarce. I really hope his family and teammates have found peace. No one deserves something like this, but it could happen to any one of us. Remember that even if there's not a thunderstorm immediately above you, lightning is still possible. This entry has relatively limited information, but it pertains to a super obscure and unsettling video that users have found deep in the depths of YouTube. It's titled Produce and is posted by a channel named Sialu. It has just 10,000 views, mostly from people sharing it around dark subreddits, and users theorize that the title Produce is simply just a default export name for a certain online editing tool. There are a couple of YouTubers who have touched on this in icebergs, but it still remains a mystery and no one has ever been able to directly find the source of the audio in it, so I thought I'd bring it to light again. The 240p video is from 2011 and it opens to a screen of Chinese text and a strange background where the text translates to "Wailing, you take me to the hospital first," imposed over a peaceful scene with a rainbow. In about 10 seconds, it fades into another stock image of pink flowers, but now some horrifying audio begins to play. We hear what sounds like a very distressed woman wailing and yelling in a different language, which would later be confirmed to be Mandarin. And just a heads up, it's pretty difficult to listen to, so I don't recommend it. But I can show you a few excerpts. The sound is very low fidelity and you can hear these sort of hitting noises or what sounds like traffic, but honestly, it's just way too difficult to make out. For this reason, many people theorize the audio comes from someone who is just in some sort of traffic accident, but others theorize it's much darker, like some sort of calculated mistreatment. And many think it's either just fake or taken from some sort of film. Again, with no visuals, it's really just difficult to surmise what it is. The video progresses the same way for the next 3.5 minutes, and honestly, the woman or individual in the audio seems to become more distressed as time goes on. The photo later changes to something else random, but the premise remains the same, and the video abruptly ends at 3 minutes and 38 seconds. Also, the channel has 6 other videos that are all just dash cam recordings of someone commuting on a motorbike, obviously just taken for insurance purposes, but they may give us some more clues, so stay tuned. And on the surface, that's really all we have, but some commenters and redditors were very useful in loosely translating it and coming up with some of their own theories, so let's see what they have to say. This user from Reddit says, "So I'm from Taiwan and I've checked the videos from this guy's channel, and I can say with about 80% certainty that the videos on this guy's channel are taken in Taiwan. These are most likely just videos taken from some guy's camera, just in case an accident happens and there's proof that can be used in court. Many of the street signs are in traditional Chinese characters, which is slightly different than China's since they use simplified characters. The layout of the roads themselves are very familiar to me since that is a scenery I grew up with. While I do speak Mandarin as my native tongue, the words I can make out from the audio are basically just saying, 'No, it hurts. Please just take me to the hospital first,' possibly referring to a wound. It got like this because you kept putting pressure on it." There are 2 more sentences like this after that I can't quite make out. It's important to note that in Mandarin, the verb for squish or apply pressure is the same as to run over, depending on the context of the sentence. Personally, from my experience, I would just say this is probably some dude who got into an accident with another girl. The way she is speaking is slightly reminiscent of a little girl's speech, especially in the way she says tong tong, which sort of is like how a kid would say ouchie. The guy could just be mocking her for overreacting, hence the format of this video, which is very in line with Taiwanese dude bro humor. So either this is a woman who reverted to speaking like a child after an accident to gain sympathy, or it could just actually be a kid. It's very hard to tell the difference since us Asian women tend to have slightly higher voices compared to Western women. And sort of in line with what the user said, this other YouTuber states, "At 1:49, the woman crying says, which translates to don't want. At 1:54, she might have said, which means don't run. The things she said afterwards are genuinely unintelligible." And another comment I found, which is sort of relieving, says, "Alright, my friends and I understand Chinese, specifically Mandarin. However, the audio is a bit muffled and we have a bit of trouble figuring out what she's saying or what's going on. But we can confirm that the woman in this audio is not part of a trafficking case or being raped, because the things she said do not add up to that theory, so it may be thrown out the window. It's probably not something that malicious. What could be happening here is highly likely to be one of the following. 1, a motor accident, or 2, birth. We don't know enough and can't make words out enough to be able to solidify either, but we can confirm that this isn't a trafficking case, nor is it a snuff audio. I don't know who came up with these theories, but we can say that they definitely don't know what they're talking about, so don't take them to heart. So this story, despite having made rounds on the internet before, was one I'd somehow never heard of, and it has a distressing video to go with it as well. It was actually recommended to me by this commenter, so shout out to them. And by the way guys, if you ever have any super obscure stuff that you haven't seen covered before, or something that you'd like me to help put an eye on, always feel free to comment below, because I'm always looking for stuff. Gernot Reinstadler was a promising 21-year-old ski racer who was upcoming in the late 80s and eventually joined the Austrian downhill team. He was by all means a formidable young talent, and by late 1989 he had already participated in 5 different junior world championships for his sport. To make it very simple, downhill skiing is a speed event where participants travel down very long courses, trying to be as agile as possible with high speed and as little turning as needed. Because of the nature of the sport, the athletes are always treading the line of danger, and for many of them that thrill is just another element of the sport that they love. Obviously, if you even slightly miscalculate a turn or lose control, bad things happen, and they happen very quickly. And unfortunately, that's exactly what was about to happen for 21-year-old Gernot. On the 19th of January in 1991, Gernot was doing his qualifying run for a world-renowned cup in Switzerland where initially things were going fine. He was locked in as much as he could possibly be, as he knew the stakes that were involved and how fortunate he was to be partaking in such a prestigious event. He would travel down at full speed, swiftly running the course, but suddenly, at one point, he would undershoot a turn, causing him to crash and fly into the safety nets at full speed. Now, usually this would be helpful, but in his case, one of his skis got caught in the netting, and let's just say this caused him to do the splits, but way further than naturally possible. It pulled him in separate directions until there was a snap, and in the process, important vessels were damaged, more than likely the femoral artery. And so he was sent back onto the course and left to lay there in a very agonizing situation. I don't recommend watching this video, but grown adults can make their own decisions. He was given treatment later on after being aided by emergency personnel, but unfortunately it was futile and the poor upcoming skier is no longer around. Pelvic situations like this are very difficult to come back from. It stands as one of the more gutting captures of a skiing accident, and because of this incident, many organizations around the world updated their safety netting to prevent something like this from happening again. It's sad to think that it was initially probably the most exciting day of his life, and then something like this had to occur. That's gonna do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking or subscribing, but if not, that's okay too. I upload 2 to 3 videos like this every week, so maybe I'll win you over next time. Also, a special shout out to all of my patrons. A lot of work goes into these, and I'm grateful that I've already developed such a cool community, especially in such a short period of time. I'm actually super pumped to see how far we can take this.